I never thought one confession could unravel my entire life in a matter of hours. But it did. It all started with a secret I had buried deep for years, a truth I was too afraid to face, too ashamed to admit. And yet, that morning, something inside me snapped. I looked at the man who had loved me, raised my daughter like his own, and gave us a life I didn't think I deserved. And I told him. I told him that our daughter wasn't really his. He didn't say a word at first. He just stared at me. His face, usually so calm, so full of warmth, was blank. I could see the wheels turning, trying to process what I had just said. And then he stood up. Walked to the other room. No yelling. No breakdown. Just this heavy, eerie silence that made my heart feel like it was going to burst. I thought maybe he'd come back and ask questions. Maybe we could talk. But instead, I got blocked. On everything. My calls, my messages, nothing went through. The next thing I knew, he was gone. Packed his bags, moved out overnight, and the landlord said he'd already spoken to a lawyer. I know I should have told him sooner. I know keeping something like this for years was wrong. But back then, when I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know who the father was. And when he stepped up, loved me and our baby without hesitation, I convinced myself that the truth didn't matter anymore. That love was enough. But lies always find a way to surface, no matter how deeply you bury them. Now my world is falling apart. My daughter keeps asking where her dad is. And I don't know what to say. He was her hero. Her everything. And I took that from her. But there's something else. Something I haven't told anyone. Not even him. The night I confessed, that wasn't the whole truth. There's more to this story. A part that changes everything. And now I'm left wondering. If I ever had the right to tell him at all, or if I just destroyed a life we both built on something I was never brave enough to face. Let me tell you what really happened. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the second letter came. But this one wasn't from Michael, and it wasn't from the man I'd tried to erase from my life. It was from the court, addressed to my daughter. My 7-year-old daughter. Inside was a notice that someone had filed for biological paternity rights. Not Michael. Not me. Him. The man from my past. The one I never wanted near my child. He had gone through with it. That letter broke something in me. I sat on the floor of the hallway holding it, shaking. How did it get this far so quickly? He wasn't supposed to know where we lived. I had moved, changed numbers, even changed jobs to make sure he was out of the picture forever. But now he had dragged my daughter into a legal battle, and worse, he was making it public. The twist? He wasn't acting alone. Later that week, I got a call from my former best friend, Jenna. We hadn't spoken in months. She was one of the few people who knew the full story, including the identity of my daughter's possible biological father. She had been there when everything first fell apart, when I found out I was pregnant and broke down in her tiny apartment. And now, hearing her voice again, it was like reliving all of that pain. But what she told me next was worse than anything I imagined. "I'm sorry," she said, almost whispering. I told him. I didn't mean to, but he offered me money. I needed it, and I didn't think he'd actually go through with it. She had sold me out. Jenna told him everything, how the timelines overlapped, how I never did a paternity test, how Michael had no idea there was even a question. She gave him the ammo, and now he was using it to blow everything up. I couldn't even bring myself to hang up. I just let the phone drop to the floor. My world wasn't just unraveling, it was being set on fire. Michael still hadn't spoken to me directly, but I found out through his lawyer that he was supporting the paternity test, just to know the truth. He wasn't even sure he wanted custody anymore. He just wanted out. Out of the pain. Out of the confusion. Out of the life we built. So now here I am. Caught between two men, one trying to erase his connection to my daughter, and the other trying to claim her like she's some kind of possession. And the worst part is, I might not even have the right to stop either of them. Because all this time, the one thing I didn't do, the thing I avoided the most, was the paternity test. And now it's been ordered by the court. But what no one knows, not even Jenna, is that I did take a test years ago, and the results weren't what I expected. I kept them hidden, thinking I could control what came next. I was wrong. And now the truth is coming whether I'm ready or not. The courtroom was cold, even though it was packed with people. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, Michael's, his lawyers, even his. The man I had tried to keep in the past sat just a few feet away, calm and collected like he knew he was about to win something. My daughter wasn't there, thank God. She didn't belong in this chaos. The judge read through the case files slowly, carefully. And then came the moment I had dreaded and prayed for at the same time. The court-ordered paternity test results were entered into the record. But I already knew what it would say. I had known for years, since I took that secret test alone when my daughter was 2. The man who claimed to be her biological father wasn't a match. He wasn't the father. The courtroom went silent when the judge announced it. Even he looked shocked. Michael didn't look at me, just stared down, like the weight of everything finally hit. But the man who had stirred up this entire storm stood up, demanded a retest, saying the lab must have made a mistake. The judge denied it. The results were conclusive. He had no legal claim to my daughter. None. And then, finally, Michael looked at me. He asked to speak privately, outside the courtroom. I followed him, unsure of what to expect. His face was tired, older somehow than just a few weeks before. He said, "You should have told me. Not because of the test, but because you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth." I apologized. I didn't try to defend myself anymore. The truth had done enough damage already. He stood there quietly, then said something that caught me completely off guard. The timing, the test might say he's not the father. But neither am I. My heart dropped. He told me something I never expected. He had taken a second, private test through his lawyer weeks ago. His DNA didn't match either. My daughter wasn't his. Or the other man's. Suddenly, everything I thought I knew shattered. All the fights, the fear, the silence, it was all built on a lie I hadn't even realized I was living. Now I have to face a truth I never saw coming, and find out who the real father is. For days after the courtroom, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Michael's words in my head, "She's not mine either." It didn't make sense. The timeline, the dates, I was sure. I had only been with 2 people back then. But deep down, a part of me knew I had been so lost in those months, so emotionally numb, that maybe I forgot things I didn't want to remember. I dug through old journals, emails, anything that could help me make sense of the past. And then it hit me, one night, one mistake I had pushed so far down I almost convinced myself it hadn't happened. It was a coworker I barely knew. A night after too many drinks. We never talked again. I never even considered him as a possibility. But now everything pointed back to that forgotten moment. I reached out to him. Not to drag him into anything, but because I needed closure. For me. For my daughter. He agreed to a test. And weeks later, the results came back. He was the father. He was stunned. Said he had no idea. And honestly, neither of us knew what to do with that information. He wasn't trying to step in or take over. He said he respected the life I had built with my daughter and Michael. He didn't want to cause more pain. And in a way, that felt like a small gift, peace, at last, in a story full of pain and confusion. As for Michael, he didn't come back. But he didn't disappear either. Over time, he started checking in again. Sending birthday gifts. Asking how school was going. I think a part of him still sees her as his in some way, not by blood, but by memory. By love. I've learned more about forgiveness in these last few months than I ever thought possible. Not just from others, but for myself. I made mistakes. I lied. I let fear control me. But I've also faced the truth, even when it hurt, and I've fought to keep my daughter's world from falling apart. Now it's just us two, starting over. No more secrets. No more running. Just honesty, growth, and healing. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that DNA doesn't define family, love, truth, and the courage to own your past do. And in the end, that's what I'll teach my daughter.